Church 180, we're so glad that you are joining us today. I want to invite you to just join along with your family, with your friends, and let's praise our God. 1, 2.
The weapon may be formed, but it won't prosper. When the darkness falls, it won't prevail. 'Cause the God I serve knows only how to triumph. My God will never fail. Oh, my God will never fail. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. Oh, I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. There's power in the mighty name of Jesus. Every war he wages, he will win. Oh, I'm not backing down from any giant. Yes, I know how this story ends. Oh, yes, I know how this story ends. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. Oh, I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. Oh, I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. Oh. You take what the enemy meant for evil, and you turned it for good. You turned it for good. You take what the enemy meant for evil, and you turned it for good. You turned it for good. You take what the enemy meant for evil, and you turned it for good. You turned it for good. You take what the enemy meant for evil, and you turned it for good. You turned it for good. You take what the enemy meant for evil, and you turned it for good. You turned it for good. You take what the enemy meant for evil, and you turned it for good. You turned it for good. Oh, I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. Oh, I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. Oh, I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. Oh, I'm gonna see a victory. I'm Tried so hard to see it, took me so long to believe it, that you choose someone like me to carry your victory. Perfection could never earn it. You give what we don't deserve, and you take the broken thing and raise him to glory. You are my champion. Giants fall when you stand undefeated. Every battle you've won. I am who you say I am. You crown me with confidence. I am seated in the heavenly place, undefeated, with the one who has conquered it all. Now I can finally see it. You're teaching me how to receive it. So let all the striving cease. Oh, this is my victory. You are my champion. Giants fall when you stand undefeated. Every battle you won. I am who you say I am. You crown me with confidence. I am seated in the heavenly place, undefeated, with the one who has conquered it all. When I lift my voice and shout, every wall comes crashing down. I have the authority Jesus has given me. When I open up my mouth, miracles start breaking out. I have the authority Jesus has given me.
Good morning, guys. Here with the announcements, just letting you know our next back to school Church 180 drive-by is going to be Sunday, August 23rd. All you have to do is load up your car with your family, drive by Caesar Solis Park anywhere between 3 and 5 p.m. and look for the Church 180 signs. We're partnering again with the San Ysidro School District to pack up and distribute food to families in need in our community. The next outreach is going to be Tuesday, August 18th. You guys can feel free to sign up for this event on the app. It'll be from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. at Sunset Elementary. We're quickly and actively planning a night of worship at one of our local parks, so stay tuned for more details. And lastly, everything we're able to do is because of active generosity through all of you, so you can feel free by giving through our app or our website, which is church180sd.com/give. We're super excited to continue our week 4 with Endless Summer. You guys have a good day.
Welcome to week 4, Endless Summer. Before we get going, just wanted to let you know of a couple things real quick. As many of you know, the San Ysidro School District is near and dear to our hearts, with many of those students just being in dire need. McKinney-Vento is the term for hundreds of those students that are, it's a government term for the homeless. And so this distance learning is going to just pose some real challenges. And so the district has been able to secure funds for Chromebooks and some of those things, but one of the big needs is thumb drives. And so we had some money kind of budgeted for some fun things at the back to school resource fair, kind of like we did last year with the prize wheel and all that fun stuff. It'll be happening down the track, but it won't be prize wheels and all that stuff. So we're able to reallocate some of that, as well as many of you bought, remember we used to have physical gatherings. Many of you guys bought a lot of coffees and espressos, and we said, man, we're going to donate 100% of the profits to this to people in need. And so we were able to write a $1,000 check this week for thumb drives for students in need in the midst of distance learning. So well done, good job. Thank you for your generosity. It really does matter. That said, too, there's a huge need for school supplies coming up. So we have a link on our website where you can give directly to getting school supplies to students who need those. Church180sd.com/give, and you can go there, click the link, click school supplies, and you can give that way. Alternatively, if you're a shopper and you want to shop, go out and find some things on sale. That's incredible. You can buy school supplies. That way, we're going to have a list of some of the things that we need in regards to that whenever there is a back to school fair. We're going to be able to volunteer at it. It's going to be fun. But if you want to shop, you can also drop those off at one of our next face-to-face gatherings, which I'm really excited about, that we're going to be talking about real soon, that are coming down the track real soon. So the next one is August 23rd, whenever we have our 180 Kids bag pickup. So if you got a kid that's in 180 Kids, you can come on August 23rd and pick up school supplies, some fun things, stuff to go with our curriculum and help you disciple your kids. But at the same time, you can drop off some school supplies to us there for some of these students in need as the district is collecting them right now. So thanks for that. Thanks for that. So welcome to week 4 of Endless Summer. It has been said that there are approximately 23 million surfers in the world, of which I am one. and so we don't really know. We don't really know. Our for sure where surfing has originated, Hawaii, maybe, I think. But we do know it's thousands, like the act of riding waves is thousands of years old, all over Polynesian islands and everything, which Hawaii is the epicenter. And we know that a guy named Captain James Cook, the famous British explorer who traveled the world, he documented seeing his first surfing experience in 1777, which is insane, and which led to the writings of Mark Twain and Jack London, famous authors who also wrote a little bit about surfing as well. And you've traveled, fast forward, about 50 years, 40 years, and you get to the 1820s, and you have the first missionary expedition led by a man named Hiram Bingham, probably butchering that name, but Hiram Bingham, who led some of the first missionaries to Hawaii in the 1820s. And rough life right now. And he wrote about seeing surfing happen. And here are his words that I want to give to you today. The appearance of destitution, degradation, and barbarism among the chattering and almost naked savages, whose heads and feet and much of their sunburnt skins were bare, was appalling. Okay, so we know how he feels about surfing, right? And stuff. And 27 years later, he wrote this. He wrote, the decline and discontinuance of the use of the surfboard as civilization advances may be accounted for by the increase in modesty, industry, or religion. So I did a little search this weekend, and I wanted to search the scriptures and figure out, no, I'm just kidding. I didn't have to search the scriptures. There's nothing in the scriptures about surfing. There isn't anything there. But as we're going to see in our passage today, there's a direct parallel to this story and what's going on. So we're in the summer, week 4. We said we were in this series for a couple of reasons. Number 1, it's summer, and the season's endless. And number 2, Jesus did much of his early days public ministry beside the Sea of Galilee in a tranquil setting right there. And we want to cover those within the book of Mark, some of those stories. So that's what we've been doing and looking at. And we said there's something about summer that's marked by the sea. It's marked by pools, lakes, rivers, beaches, oceans. There's something about summer marked by water. And so here we are in the summer looking at some of the public ministry beside the Sea of Galilee in the life of Jesus. So let's dig into this one as Jesus gets in a heated debate with the religious leaders of the day. So Mark chapter 7 verse 1 is where we're at, and it says this: the Pharisees, some of the teachers of the law who'd come from Jerusalem, gathered around Jesus and saw some of his disciples eating food with hands that were defiled, that is, unwashed. The Pharisees and all the Jews do not eat unless they give their hands a ceremonial washing, holding to the tradition of the elders. And when they came from the marketplace, they do not eat unless they wash, and they observe many other traditions, such as the washing of cups, pitchers, and kettles. So the Pharisees and teachers of the law asked Jesus, why don't your disciples live according to the tradition of the elders instead of eating their food with defiled hands? See, every culture views cleanliness differently, don't they? Every culture does. I remember when we first moved to New Zealand and we were looking at places to rent, and every single house that you could possibly rent, outlawed, banned the wearing of shoes in the house. It was a cultural taboo, considered disgusting or gross, that you would tramp around outside and walk around and you'd take all that you walked on and you'd bring it into your house. It was disgusting. And we kind of, been living, there for a couple of years, and then we kind of came back to, where we're from and our home to visit with our family. And we were just like, man, this is weird. Everybody's wearing their shoes in the house. And it was winter, to be fair, and stuff. We're like, this is disgusting, because every culture views cleanliness differently from time to time. And here we are, fast forward a few years later, and here we are in San Diego, and wearing shoes in the house sometimes. And maybe I should stop. I don't really know. And stuff. Or how about this one? No one goes on a date for the first or 100th time without getting cleaned up, unless you're gross, right? If you're going to go on a date or you're going to go to somewhere important, you take a shower, you put on clean clothes, you brush your teeth. There's just some things that you do unless you're gross. Or you've got that COVID laze, right? The laziness that ensues in this season. See, the point is this. Okay, the point of the passage and what Jesus is getting at is God wanted his nation to be clean before him, and orchestrated and set about some rules and some laws with which they could do to be clean. And the religious leaders of that day were saying, hey, we want to follow the law to the utmost, so we're going to create a bunch of other laws to make sure that we don't even get close to that law. And as a result of all these other laws, over time, they started to elevate these other laws to be at the same level as the actual laws that Jesus had given. And we're going to get to that in a minute. But think surfing for a second. There's nothing in the scriptures about surfing. But there's a lot in the scriptures about promiscuity and lust and sexual immorality. And so all of a sudden, surfing was viewed as this thing. It's like, no. It's going to lead towards these other things. So we've got to ban it. We've got to oust it. We've got to get rid of it. And that's the parallel that I'm talking about. And we're just going to pick up where we left off. Verse 14. Actually, no. Like I said, all right, we're going to be in Mark chapter 7, 1 through 23, but we're jumping around a ton. It's going to be like a ping pong. I'd encourage you to get your Bible out, follow along with this. Verse 14 says this. Again, Jesus called the crowd to him, and he said, listen to me, everyone. everyone, and understand this. Nothing outside a person can defile them by going into them. Rather, it's what comes out of that person, what comes out of them that defiles them. See, and according to Jesus, we are all unfit to stand before the living God. We are. And he's saying it's not because of what's on the outside, it's because of what's on the inside that you're unfit to stand before the living God. And see, what I want to share, I don't have a hard time sharing, but it's super controversial, specifically in our culture and day and age, is that Jesus would constantly say, he would say that John chapter 14, verse 6, he said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one can come to the Father, the living God, without coming first through me. So according to Jesus, that we're unfit to come, like we're unclean, we're unfit to come before the living God as we are without someone interceding for us, which is Jesus. It's controversial because we live in a day and an age where we say, oh, Jesus is one of many ways, or there's a bunch of different paths, and you can take this and do that and whatever, and all roads are leading to the same place. And the reality is Jesus didn't leave that to be an option. You know, he's either absolutely out of his mind, like we've talked about before, crazy, lunatic, he's absolutely lying, or he is who he said he is. He didn't leave the option of, hey, I'm one of the ways, just coming, you know, kind of like he said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. But we live in a day where that's super controversial, and we don't like the Jesus way, and we like some of the things that Jesus said, but not all of them and stuff. See, Tim Keller, in his book Jesus the King, which has influenced a lot of our study through the book of Mark and journey through the book of Mark, talks about a novel that he thought was great. Okay, I'm not sure I want to read it, but it's a novel by someone named Franz Kafka, which is called The Trial. And in the novel, he explains that the premise of the novel is that there's this man who was put on trial, convicted, and put in prison, and he kept having different trials and kept having different, like standing before juries and all this stuff. And he continued to live his entire life in prison, not knowing why he was there in the first place. To the point where, it's got this wonderful ending where I guess he annoys one of the guards and he finally pulls out a knife and stabs him and he dies and the book's over. Great, maybe you should read it. The Trial, Franz Kafka. And so he's in prison his whole life and he doesn't understand why and what's wrong with him. And see, Tim Keller explains that Kafka later says in a different article, the state in which we find ourselves today is sinful, but quite independent of guilt. The state we find ourselves in today is sinful, but independent of guilt. And then Keller goes on to say and paraphrase it, and kind of explain what he thinks he's getting at in this. He says, in other words, we live in a world now where we don't believe in judgment, we don't believe in sin, and yet we still feel that there's something wrong with us. Kafka was really onto something. Though we've abandoned the ancient categories, we still have a profound, inescapable sense that if we were examined, we'd be rejected. Dang. What do you do with that? What do we do? What does this mean for us? Let's keep going. Mark chapter 7, verse 17. I told you we're jumping around a little bit. Verse 17, it says this: after he left the crowd, entered the house, his disciples asked him about this parable. Are you so dull, he asked. Don't you see that nothing that enters a person from the outside can defile them? For it doesn't go into their heart, but into their stomach and then out of their body. In saying this, Jesus declared, all food's clean. And he went on and he said, what comes out of a person is what defiles them. For it's from within, out of a person's heart, that evil thoughts come: sexual immorality, theft, murder, adultery, greed, malice, deceit, lewdness, envy, slander, arrogance, and folly. All these evils come from inside a person and defile them. See, according to Jesus, the problem with you and the problem with me is the condition of our hearts. The condition, you go back to it. We feel that if we were to be examined, we'd be rejected. And I think that stems from the condition of our hearts. at least according to Jesus. So here's what I want to do. I want to tackle the bad before the good. So we're going to get somewhere good, but let's tackle the bad first. And so what I want to do in tackling the bad is I want to look at 4 signs of spiritual heart disease. 4 signs of spiritual heart disease. So you guys ready? It's going to be fun. Let's do this. Number 1, defaulting to legalism. Defaulting to legalism. See, legalism is this, and we've already mentioned it. Legalism is elevating human traditions to the standard of God's law. It's elevating, human traditions to the standard of God's law. Back in this passage, verse 5, we've kind of covered verse 5. We didn't do 6 through 8, which we're going to do. It says, so the Pharisees and teachers of the law asked Jesus, why don't your disciples live according to the tradition of the elders? Why aren't they following the tradition? And instead of eating their food with defiled hands. And he replied, Isaiah was right when he prophesied about you hypocrites, as it's written, these people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. They worship me in vain, and their teachings are merely human rules. You have let go of the commands of God and are holding on to human traditions. I want to just be real frank with you, whatever. I remember, I grew up in rural Illinois. And there was some traditions, and one of those traditions was you get dressed up for church. And I remember my youth pastors on our leadership team tells the story. He spoke a few weeks ago at Church 180. Check it out. But Jared, he tells the story of getting in trouble one time because he was wearing sandals to church, and I guess he wasn't in the Sunday best or whatever. And he was an employee, so it's like, hey, you don't wear those and do that. And I just think about that, and I'm like, that's hilarious to me. I mean, y'all should just kick me out of this church since I wear sandals all the time. But I'm not. I mean, there's something that's good. It's this idea. The heart is to give God your best, but then giving God our best becomes things that maybe God never had in mind. And I'm not saying, if you want to dress up, that's fine. That's good. And if you're for that, that's fine. I mean, I can sympathize with you, be with you, and stuff like that. But I don't think that that's necessarily what God had in mind. Okay, let's go to this one real quick. I remember Kelsey and I were looking at a venue for our wedding whenever we were about to get married. And there was a church that we were looking to have our wedding at, but we learned that there would be no dancing at our reception if we used this church because dancing leads to what. and so in the the spirit of not having promiscuity, lust, sexual immorality, all these other things like surfing, is kind of like, okay, we're going to draw the hard line with dancing. And so no dancing and stuff. We actually had our wedding somewhere else. But there's some good news here, okay? Because I think there's a good heart there. I do, in a lot of this. I don't necessarily think there's a good heart with these Pharisees and these religious teachers of the law, but there's a good heart with a lot of human traditions and things that we do. I mean, think about it for a second. I think seatbelts and helmets are a good idea. They saved a lot of lives and stuff. But ultimately, the idea is that through legalism and through elevating these human traditions, over time, we can make them more important than things God's actually asking out of us. And the sickness, I think, in legalism, the sickness in your heart and my heart in legalism is whenever we, through our traditions, try to earn the approval of God. That's not how it works. Time and time again, we learn that's not how it works. See, once again, hear me in this. I think that doing the right things and not doing the wrong things are great. But they're a condition not of tradition and legalism and God, look at everything I did because I earned my approval and favor and whatever. I think that what Jesus is saying is that doing the good things and not doing the bad things are the condition of a heart that's been changed from the inside out, not the outside in, through legalism. So hopefully that makes sense. Write something on your connection card if you need more clarification. Number 2, defaulting to legalism. Number 2, searching for loopholes. No, gosh, this nails me to a wall. And so verse 9 in this passage says this, and he continued, "You have a fine way of setting aside the commands of God in order to observe your own traditions. For Moses said, honor your father and mother, and anyone who curses their father or mother is to be put to death. And so what's happening here is they have this term called Corban, which I talked about a few weeks ago as I kind of glazed over this passage and in relation to another passage. But they had this thing called Corban, and Corban, what it meant was just a term for their day, meaning that something is devoted to God, which in this case it would be their wealth is devoted to God. Now the law of the day was that they would honor their father and mother, which meant that they would take care of them. And anyone knows that taking care of aging parents takes a little bit of wealth in the later years. So that they would take care of their father and mother by honoring them. And what they were doing was they were devoting their wealth to Corban. They were devoting their wealth to God. And they were saying, no, I can't, Mom, Dad, I can't give you my wealth because I've devoted it to God. And Jesus is saying, no. You're neglecting the actual commandment of God to keep your tradition. You know, you've tried to find a loophole in this. You've tried to find a loophole in actually following my commands and everything. And honestly, side note, that's actually what taking the Lord's name in vain means, is attaching God's name to something that he wants nothing to do with. Attaching his name to something he wants nothing to do with. We make it like, oh my God, I said, whatever. I think that may be disrespectful and whatnot. But it's really taking the Lord's name in vain is attaching his name to something he wants nothing to do with. And that's what they were doing through Corban. And so what does that look like for us? I mean, if you work with teenagers in ministry, the golden question is, well, how far is too far, right? It comes to fooling around, the boyfriend or girlfriend or something like that. Just the question always gets asked. And for us, I mean, we ask the same question, but we ask it in relation to alcohol or substances, or we ask it in relation to taxes and what do you mark here and put there and etc. And I mean, we get down roads where we're like, well, is that really gossip, or is it not gossip, or is it a prayer request, or what was it? And I mean, and we get to that. I mean, and I mean, even to the point where we look for loopholes, around things like giving and generosity, right? And I mean, like, because I mean, the loophole for that is like, well, Jesus didn't mention tithing. I mean, Jesus didn't talk about this, but I mean, Jesus, didn't ever make anything easier. I mean, he did. He said, come to me for your cleansing, and come to me for your purity, and come to me for these things. Come to me to go to the Father. But we do know that Jesus said, hey, give to Caesar what's Caesar's and give to God what's God's. And in doing so, he said, man, give to God your entire life. And your finances are part of that. So I think that sometimes we look for loopholes to get out of things, and I think that those loopholes and searching for loopholes is a sign of the condition of our heart, and a sign that we may have spiritual heart disease when it comes to that. This is fun, isn't it? Number 3, filtering Jesus through politics. Filtering Jesus through politics. This is a good one, right? I don't know if you've ever used a filter before, if you get on Instagram or anything else, but filters where you kind of have the photo the way that you want it, and you put like a certain color scheme or something over the top of it, or I guess you got your Snapchat filters that do like, I don't know, cat faces and other stuff. But even at Church 180, I like to use the filter of Cali for a lot of things, and we should have a filter coming up over my screen right now, maybe. But you know what this is, filtering Jesus through politics. It means that we come to our scriptures, we come to Jesus with the lens of our political bias over it all, right? Right? I mean, we live in a day and age of political division where we literally have news stations selling us garbage. Okay? We know, and I'm not knocking one side or the other. Don't hear a bias out of me. I'm condemning it all. Okay? All of it's garbage. Everybody knows that, you can get a little bit of ratings if you just, put up drama. And so we've got this drama, and people are getting so heated and so into their echo chambers and their camps and their biases and whatever with that. But I'm just saying, don't filter Jesus with your political bias. That's junk. That's garbage, and he will not stand for it. and be about it. I love what Keller says once again when he's talking about, he's referring to a book written around World War II by a woman named Dorothy Sayers, who wrote this book called Creed or Chaos. And she said this. Sayers said that over the previous century or more, politics had operated on the following basis. What was wrong with the human society was not in the heart, not in the human heart. It lay in social structures, lack of education. It was a lack of applying what we know through science. Therefore, we could just fill these gaps. Human society would achieve greatness. But modern history is littered with disillusioned people who thought capitalism would make us better or socialism would make us better. The sins of the human heart just express themselves differently in each of these systems. See, Jesus isn't going to be filtered through your hot talking points on Fox News or CNN. He's not going to be filtered through that. I mean, he's just not. I mean, I want to mention Keller again because he said something really good about this. I was listening to the Carey Nieuwhof podcast, which is a leadership podcast, where he was on it recently, and I don't even know how they got there, but Tim Keller was talking about how, as far as he can see when he reads the scriptures, as far as he can see when he gets before Jesus through his word, he can see that 4 hot topics in today's culture are near and dear to the heart of God and his followers. Number 1, he talked about sexual morality. And number 2, he talked about abortion, and that being near and dear to the heart of God. Number 3, he talked about racial reconciliation, being near and dear to the heart of God. And then the last one, he talked about caring for the poor and the marginalized. And he was saying the last time I checked, he said, I saw two major political parties in this country championing 2 each. And he's like, and our temptation, if we're not careful in the church, is going to be to elevate 2 and downplay 2. To elevate 2 and downplay 2. He's like, I think we can be a pretty healthy church if we can hold all 4 of them out there before people and stuff, which I thought that was really good. And I gotta be honest, y'all, pray for me. It's tempting. I mean, it just is, because I know that so many of us carry these political biases in and filter Jesus through that political bias. And all you got to do is turn me off right now if you're like, well, I don't like the politics that Tony's talking about, you know. And that's the world we live in. But hear me in this. I mean, my temptation is to shy away from things. I don't want to ruffle some feathers. I'm a people pleaser. I just am. But I've had to wrestle with Paul in Galatians chapter 1 verse 10, and he says, man, am I trying to please people, or am I trying to please God? If I was still trying to please people, I wouldn't be doing this or be a servant of the living God. So, man, hear me on that. So, number 4, last one, is riding the cultural lazy river. Riding the cultural lazy river. Let me be clear, I love lazy rivers. I do. Can't wait to take my girls on one. I don't think they've ever been on one. And I grew up around a place where we actually didn't have we didn't use a lazy river, but we got on inner tubes and floated down real rivers. I mean, even to the point in college where we would have people drop us off at certain points and be like, hey, we'll let you know where we're at in 3 hours and pick us back up. And we would, we'd just go for a long time, and it was fun. And because you don't know how fast the river's going, where it's going to take you, the whole thing, and you just kind of just give them, I'm at the corner of wherever, can you come pick me up later on? And it was a blast. But let me explain this one, because we've already covered in talking about this that we know that something's wrong with us, that if we were to stand before an examiner or a judge, that we'd be rejected. That's what we talked about. And so whenever we kind of just ride the cultural lazy river with life, what I mean by this is we get on Instagram or TV, or we look at celebrities or influencers or whoever, and we see their lives and we see what they're up to, and we see the way that they make things look, the way that they make pictures look, the way that they make their bodies look, the way that they, the things that they say and all this stuff, and we start to think things. If only I could look like that. If only I could act like that. If only I could think like that. If only I could be like that. And we worship them. I mean, gosh, I struggle with this when it comes to looking at to other, different pastors, playing the comparison game on social media. It's like, man, if only I could talk like that or look like, and then you go down these roads, and it's like the cultural lazy river. It's like getting on that thing, and we start to think, man, if only I could do what they do, follow their plan, change, start to look differently, buy the right clothes, have the right haircut, do the right things, lose the right weight, have the right muscles. If only my beliefs and convictions were as strong as that, I could speak out with courage about these things, and I could be seen this certain way, and we're just riding the cultural lazy river because our assumption is that then I will be clean. Then I will be acceptable before the living God, or at least the people that I'm trying to impress in life. Because then, if only I can get to this certain status, if only I can look like them, if only I can ride this wave, then I will be acceptable. Then I will be worthy. And we fail to realize in doing so that all of humanity is in the same boat, and that most often the people who make things look the best are still miserable on the inside. Not all, but a lot of celebrities are. And I think that we inherently know that the lazy river of culture ain't going to take us where we want to go. And so then the question is, what do we do? Like, what do we do? We got heart disease. We got a sick heart, according to Jesus. It's not, what we do on external, like all these things are about doing things externally to make ourselves approvable or worthy. And I think the thing that Jesus is getting at is, no. It's what's on the inside that makes you approvable or worthy. I mean, ultimately what Jesus is getting at is we need heart surgery. So what I want to do to close is I want to look at this incredible ancient verse from the book of Ezekiel. Okay, this verse was written thousands of years, 600 years before Jesus even came on the scene. And Ezekiel's a prophet, and he's writing to this nation that's devastated. I mean, their whole nation was decimated. Even their capital city finally at this point was decimated, and by the Babylonians, who are now taking them into slavery and into captivity. And so this prophet Ezekiel is speaking prophecy. Literally, it's speaking about the future for this time, and he's speaking this prophecy, and the thing is, he's speaking it to the actual people who are going through this and going into captivity, but he's also reaching into the future with what Jesus is going to usher in. Specifically, what Jesus is going to usher in for you and for me in this moment, if we'll put our faith and trust in him. So he says this, it's quite an emotional verse, I think. Ezekiel chapter 36, verse 25, 26, and 27. I'll sprinkle clean water on you, and you will be clean. I will cleanse you from all your impurities and from all your idols, and I'll give you a new heart and put a new spirit in you. I will remove from you your heart of stone and give you a heart of flesh, and I will put my spirit in you and move you to follow my decrees and be careful to keep my laws. See, he's prophesying that for them, he's going to give them their spirit, and they're going to deliver them from captivity and all this stuff. But it's a double meaning, speaking to the future of what is available to you and available to me through Jesus. And he said, you can be worthy, you can be approved, you can be examined and be accepted. But it happens when Jesus, through his Spirit, gives you a new heart. Jesus reiterates this, John chapter 3, verse 5, when he's talking to Nicodemus, and he said, man, you got to be born of the Spirit. And he's talking about literally being born again, that there's this moment where whenever the Spirit intervenes with our lives and comes into our lives through putting our faith and trust in Jesus, coming to Jesus, that it's like another birth. It's a spiritual birth that happens where we get a new heart in that. See, and I guess what I want to close by saying is for some of us, today, you maybe need to calibrate. And maybe the version of Christianity you had was one of these signs of heart diseases. And you need to calibrate, and you need to come to the living God and say, God, I've been trying to do it outside in, and I need you to do it inside out. And maybe you want to make that decision for the first time, and please put that on a connection card or let us know in some way, and we would love to journey with you in the beginnings of your journeying with Jesus and following Jesus and accepting him into your life to get this new heart. We want to be there for you as a church, but I'm guessing there's a lot of others of us who need a recalibration, right? Where we started this journey and we're like, okay, God, I get it's all about you, but somehow over time I slipped into trying to earn my way, or somehow over time I started searching for all these loopholes because or somehow over time I just got adrift in the cultural river, or somehow over time I just got fired up about politics and started to see you through the filter of the bias, whatever. And I think that for many of us we need a recalibration. And I want to invite you into that today. I want to invite you into a recalibration, because what Jesus wants to do is his most profound work in giving you a new heart, a new birth. He wants to give you cleanliness. He wants to give you worthiness. He wants to give you acceptance. He wants to give you feelings of security, not just security, but he wants to help you to feel assured of your security in him. He wants to change your life. But it's so contrary to the way that we think that it is going to work, because we so often think it's from the outside in, but it's with Jesus, it's from the inside out that he wants to change us. So all of this is possible. All of this is possible because of the death of Jesus, the burial of Jesus, as he sat with our sins in death, and because of the resurrection of Jesus, as he showed us that he has power over sin, he has power over death, he has power over life, he has power over everything. And so we celebrate that every week. And so at this time, we're going to celebrate communion together, where we just go get some food, get a drink, and we remember the body of Jesus was broken, the blood of Jesus that was poured out, so that we could have that hope and forgiveness and chance and life and everything that we're talking about. So I want to invite you to join with us this morning and celebrate in that with us this morning. The fact that we can have hope because we can have a new heart of flesh. See, we always say here, turn toward hope. But the reality is when turning toward hope, it equals turning towards Jesus for the worthiness and for the acceptance and for the hope that we're all after. So I'm going to pray for us and for communion. Jesus, thank you that you, God, you want to do something in our lives, but that it starts with our hearts. And God, through you coming into our lives and giving us a heart of flesh, God, would you usher in the feelings of security, the worthiness, the hope, the acceptance, everything that comes with it, Lord. It's in your name we pray, Jesus. Amen.
I don't wanna be afraid every time I face the waves. I don't wanna be afraid. I don't wanna be afraid. I don't wanna fear the storm just because I hear it roar. I don't wanna fear the storm. I don't wanna fear the storm. Peace. heart, believe, let faith rise up in you. Let faith rise up, oh heart, believe, let faith rise up in you. Let faith rise up, oh heart, believe, let faith rise up in me. Let faith rise up, oh heart, believe, let faith rise up in me. Peace, be still, say the word and I will set my feet upon the sea till I'm dancing in the deep. Peace, be still, you are here, so it is well. Even when my eyes can't see, I will trust the voice that speaks. Peace, oh Jesus, you're the God of peace. I will trust the